Hey everyone, my name's Molly and today we're going to be looking at a festive beginner's Christmas stocking. So let me start just by saying that I don't want you to be intimidated by this if you are a beginner. Basically you can make whatever you want and I just want you to feel confident in what you sew. So if there's any terminology in this tutorial that you find confusing, I have made a separate video that's linked in the description that's just going to talk through that terminology so that when you come to these stages in the tutorial you won't be confused and you'll be a sewing wizard by the end of it. So let's start by looking at the lovely fabric. Right, I have this lovely retro, I think it's 70s, I don't know, tablecloth that I got from Oxfam and it costs £3.99. And I got another stripy fabric, I think it's a tablecloth. I think they're both cottons. Not that that's important, but you know. This one's from Cats Protection and this one cost me £4. And then I have a red upholstery wool, an orange velvet and a pink I think it's a flocked fabric, I don't know what it is, it's not velvet. So I got these three from my local scrap store, and like I said, those two from a local charity shop. Obviously you can get whatever fabric you like, but it's a bit more eco-friendly if we reuse some fabric, and actually the scrap store is a charity, so kind of given to charity at the same time. So let me just show you two stockings that I made earlier. This one I made using the pink flocked fabric and a few other scraps that I'd got from the scrap store. So what I've done with this one is I've just cut strips of fabric and then I've just zigzag stitched them down with the twin needle. They're all lined and they've got a loop. So today we're going to be doing the cuffed stocking, but you can do either. So what I will do is I'm just going to link in the description a resource for you so that rather than watching the video all the time you can just look back at this and use it again. It's also going to have a pattern on there for you. So all you'll need to do is print that one out and sellotape it together or tape it together, whatever you want to do. So this one has a band on the top or a cuff, and again it's lined and you have a lovely loop, and I've sewn these strips of fabric on here. You can leave yours totally plain or you can put an initial on it. You can put anything you want on it. So you could, if you had a fabric with a pattern, if you found it easier, you could totally, if I can show you, not very well, you could totally cut these hearts out and then stitch them on top of here so you've got a bit of texture, but basically do whatever you want. Let's move on to the stocking making. Okay, so you're going to fold your fabric in half and then you're going to place your pattern piece on top. So you're going to pin that straight edge following the fold. So you want a nice straight line. So you're following the grain. You're going to pin all the way around and then you're going to grab whatever ruler you can and mark a 1 centimetre seam allowance. So everything we're working with today is going to have a 1 centimetre seam allowance. So when you're sewing it, just remember 1 centimetre, okay? Grab your scissors and then you're going to cut that bad boy out. So what I will say is, before you go ahead and sew anything, if you are putting any designs on your top fabric, you want to do it after you've cut everything out, but before you sew it. So if you're putting an initial on it, you're going to do it after you've cut everything out, but before you sew. So you're going to fold your lining fabric in half. So go for whatever lining you want, you can go for the same fabric, and rather than using the pattern pieces again, you can just use a fabric that you just cut out, and that means you don't have to draw the seam allowance on and it's much quicker. Grab pins, and I want you to set those two aside. Grab your cuff pattern piece and the material that you'd like to use. I'm using this flocked material, and you're going to fold it in half again, and you're going to pin that pattern piece along the fold line. This means that when you unpin it and undo it, it's going to be twice the length. Once you've pinned that, you're just going to grab any ruler that you're using and then mark that 1 centimetre seam allowance around all the edges. So you're going to cut around the outside edge of this pattern piece. You're going to take the pattern paper off, and then you're going to use this piece of fabric as your template again. And like I said, it means you have to mark on the seam allowance, and it's just a bit quicker for you. And then cut that one out. And then we're going to move on to our last piece, which is the tab. So grab any fabric scraps that you have. So I'm going to use the lining fabric, but you can use whatever you like. And you're going to mark a 4 centimetre wide rectangle. And then you're going to cut up each side. You're going to grab the tape measure and you're going to mark 18 centimetres and then cut that piece out. Okay, so that's everything cut out. Any creases in the fabric, if you press them now, and it just gives you a bit more of a professional finish. So that's the wrong side. And you're going to pin the two pieces of fabric right side together. So you want the pattern that you want to see on the outside on the inside at the moment. So some fabrics don't have a wrong side or right side, but usually when they're patterns, they do. So you're going to pin around the outside edge. And then you're just going to leave this section open here, and that's going to allow you to bag out the stocking at the end. Leave the top open, so we're not going to sew any of the tops closed. With your top fabric, you've got to decide which direction you want your stocking to face. So I'm going for left, and then the pattern that you want. So that is my right side. So I'm going to sandwich that right side between the two layers. And I'm going to pin around all the outside edges. I'm not leaving anything open apart from the top, because I want to stuff all my prezzies in there, you know? Moving on to the cuff pieces, you're just going to snip along that bottom edge, so you can see that the bottom edge line is slightly longer than the top edge. That's going to help us match up at the end and make sure we sew the right section. And then you're going to fold it right sides together, so it's easier to see with this one. So the pink side is the right side and the white side is the wrong side, and you're going to pin along the short edge. So I snipped there, so that's the bottom edge. And then you're going to grab your tab and you're just going to fold that in half and pin it. Okay, so we're ready to sew now. So grab your sewing machine. If you haven't wound your bobbin, wind that bobbin up. If you get stuck at all, like I said, check that video that I've linked below. That's just going to go through a few of these techniques that you find in this video just to make it easier for you. So I've used a contrasting thread, just so hopefully in this video you can see where I've sewn, but you go ahead and use whichever thread you like. So working on the top fabric first, you're going to sew with that 1 centimetre seam allowance that we've added to all our pattern pieces around the outside edge. So try and get a nice smooth finish if you can, but don't worry, like I said, we're not looking for perfection, so follow the shape as best you can. It can be tricky going around those corners. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the lining fabric. So we're going to start by stitching ever so slightly down up to the first marker pin, then we're going to leave that section open, move it along to the next pin, back stitch it just to secure that opening so it doesn't open any further, and then you're going to carry all the way around following that shape with that 1 centimetre seam allowance. Okay, so let's remove all those pins. So that's the open edge that I was talking about. So keep that one open. Snip off any strays you need to. So we're just going to snip into all the curves, and that means that when we turn it right sides out and iron it, you're going to get a nice smooth line. So you don't need to snip into any straight edges, it's just the curves. It just releases that curve for you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the cuff. Grab the cuff and then you're just going to sew along that short edge that you've pinned with the 1 centimetre seam allowance. And snip any loose threads and take the pins out. Press open that seam, right sides together, matching those snips that you've made. So that's the bottom edge of the cuff. You're going to put the seams together, and then you're going to pin all around that top edge. Remove the arm of your sewing machine just so this fits on, and you're going to pop it on the machine and you're going to sew around that edge with the 1 centimetre seam allowance. We're going to top stitch now, so you're going to push everything to the right side. You're going to pop it on the machine again, and you're going to sew as close to that seam as possible. So this top stitch just stops the lining from rolling back out. Okay, so what you want to do is you're going to pop that cuff inside, so you want that stitch line to be on the inside now. So top stitching there on the inside. So you can press this at this stage, but mine wasn't too bad so I didn't bother, but you might want to. So we're going to move on to the cuff, and you're going to sew that with that 1 centimetre seam allowance I keep banging on about. Grab your loop turner. Now I found this pretty tricky. There is a knack to getting this, so if you have any problems, make sure you leave a comment and I can give you some advice. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull that right side through, and then once you've done that, you're going to push the seam allowance into the centre of the tab. You're going to turn the top fabric stocking right sides out, and then you're going to go and press the stocking, the cuff and that tab. Don't worry about the lining. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to feed your top fabric stocking inside of the cuff. You're going to match the seam of the long side of the stocking to the seam of the cuff. So the long side is, I guess, the leg of the stocking. And then you're going to pin all around that top edge. The tab, fold it with the seam on the inside, and then you're going to pin that along that long straight edge as well, matching all the seams, or I should say the outside edge of the stocking. That might make it a bit more understandable. So you're going to feed everything inside of that stocking, and you're going to match the seams of the stocking with the seams of the top fabric stocking. So make sure both stockings, the heel and the boot of the foot, or the toe of the stocking, is going towards the same direction. So all of mine is going towards the left. So pin along that top edge. So you might find that one of the stockings is slightly bigger than the other, or the cuff is, but you should be able to ease that in. Or you might have a few puckers, but like I said, we're not looking for perfection, so you know, if it's your first go, ain't no biggie. So you're going to sew all around that top edge with the 1 centimetre seam allowance. Your fabric might be slightly thicker where the tab is, but don't worry, just ease the machine over that. Using the hole that you've left open, you're going to pull everything right sides through. So both stockings, lining and the top fabric stocking should be the right way around now. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew another top stitch along the lining there. So using the opening that you've left in the lining, you're going to feed that onto the sewing machine. You're going to push all the seam allowance towards the lining side, and you're going to sew a stitch on the lining as close to the seam as possible. So this is just going to stop that lining from rolling back out. Snip any loose ends. Final stage, what we're going to do is we're just going to close that hole. So you can either iron in the 1 centimetre seam allowance, or by pulling it taut, you can usually get quite a nice finish. So you're going to sew as close to the edge as possible. Now if you're experienced, you can go, or even if you're not, you can go ahead and use a slip stitch, which means you're not going to see where you've left a hole. It's not going to be so obvious, it's going to be a bit neater, but it's on the inside, so it doesn't really matter too much, and it's going to be stuffed full of presents, like I said, so no one's going to see. So press the top cuff there, and then you should have something snazzy that looks like this.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So hopefully you have a stocking that looks something like this. So like we said, it's going to be plain, but it should have a nice cuff, fully lined, and you should have some snazzy top stitching. So I sewed it in a contrasting stitch so that you could see where I'd sewn, but please feel free to stitch in any colour you'd like. And like I said, you can jazz it up as much as you want, but you should have something hopefully that looks like this. So what I want you guys to do is please like and subscribe, leave any comments below, any future projects you'd like me to do, any advice. If you get stuck on any of these stages, let me know. Don't forget that I've left the resource in the link below. So I guess I'll just say goodbye. I'm really hot this video. Whew, gosh guys, sewing at speed is hard. Anyway, I'll see you in my next video. All right, cheers guys, bye.